Six. What is it? So our content today, we'll start off with what is AI, the basics, the nerdy stuff. We're going to look at how AI influenced the recent US election. Then we'll look at some AI tools for copy creation, SEO, image creation. Then we're going to do a Q&A and take a short break. And when we come back from that short break, we're going to look at the business case or the administrative side of business, looking at smart objectives, project planning, risk management, social media, and then there'll be time at the end again for more Q&A. Now, you can see I've highlighted this on your toolbar in Zoom. There's an AI companion. If you tap on that, it brings up this really useful window in the sidebar. And I just, whilst we were talking earlier, I just asked a question, what's been discussed so far? And this is a prompt, this is the response it gave me to it. So make use of that. It's a little bit of fun. Whatever you put into your AI search tool in this Zoom meeting, we can't see it. It's private to you. So ask it anything. It's useful and it's just a little bit of fun. I want to do a quick chat poll. What was the last thing you did with AI? If you can just, any of you, put into the chat now, the last thing that you did with AI. I'm going to monitor. I'm going to pick up the first few that put a message in there, and then we'll talk about the practical applications of some of those tools. So who's using what? Contract review. Sunil, excellent. What tool do you use for that, Sunil? I'd be interested to know. Summarizing longer text. Yeah. Writing formal letters, Steve. Yeah, I love it for that. Use it to reword my website content. Excellent. Chat box, introduction emails to prospects. Brilliant. Correcting a report. Yep. Yep. Using ChatGPT to inspire titles for events. Yesterday. Well done, Ant. I mean, these are all great use. These are practical uses of it. The thing that I would always put across, and I'll probably reiterate this throughout the sessions, is AI is not one-shot technology. You shouldn't ask it a question, get the answer, and copy and paste that into whatever the platform is. You start a conversation with AI and you go into the detail. You get into conversational flow with it. Never take the first answer it gives, and where you can, provide it with context. So anyway, let's just get a bit nerdy on that. Social media content, Isabella. Well done. Thank you for that. AI explained. All right, so there's six components in AI. The first one is the data. This is the stuff, the scraping of the internet, the downloading every video on YouTube, every song in Spotify, all of your public posts on Facebook, all of that stuff. That's the raw data that goes into a big bucket, and that is stored in the cloud. All right, so these big data repositories have huge servers in there. And there was something interesting yesterday. I heard that one of the the biggest scale up organizations are those that are developing the processors that go into these servers. That's where the money is. Yeah, it's not in developing AI models, it's building the infrastructure, and in particular, this bit, compute, the processing power that these machines need. If you've got all this raw data, you've got it stored in the cloud on really powerful servers, you need to process these. You've got to train a model to understand what am I doing with all of this data. And the way that you do that is through algorithms. So it's a set of rules. You say to the system, these are the parameters in which I want you to understand the data sets. It starts off initially with the algorithm itself, either on its own or in partnership with other AI. So AIs now train other AIs to do that. But ultimately, what it's actually trying to do is it's trying to sift and sort and really understand the context of all of this data. What comes out the back end of all that effort is a language model. That is a pre-packed kit that then any software developer who developing apps can actually leverage that language model to develop their wraparound thing. So the chat GPTs of this world, it's a language model that they've got, and they build apps, interfaces where you can engage through discussion, through prompting, through upload and download with that data set. In essence, that's what it is. It's as simple as that. They're the six components from it. Now, it largely breaks down into three distinct areas. The first two are all about the machine itself being programmed. So the first stage is machine learning, and this is narrow intelligence, things such as Siri, ChatGPT, and Alexa, they're really common examples of narrow intelligence, very specialized, specific use cases for it. But in actual fact, where we are currently, we're about here. We're actually moving towards stage two, where we have true machine intelligence. Now, this is slightly different because whenever you've tried ChatGPT, you could be forgiven for thinking, God, that's smarter than me. And in some areas, it probably is. It's specialized in certain disciplines, but broadly, it's not as good as you in every single area. However, once stage two has been complete and we have true general intelligence, and most people are saying it's within the next 12 to 24 months, we will be at general intelligence. We will have systems that can match or exceed our level of reasoning and understanding greater than anybody on earth in every discipline. Okay. So whereas now you want mathematical formulas, you want AI to produce perform a certain task. Yes, it can beat you at that, but it can't beat you at other things. Well, in the future, general intelligence will exceed your capabilities or the best of the best capabilities in absolutely every discipline. And that's where the risk comes in. That's where everybody panics and thinks, we're all doomed. We're all doomed. I think we're not doomed with general intelligence. We're doomed if we ever get to super intelligence. That's God status. That is where these machines not only are greater in terms of their cognitive ability than human beings in every area, but they work entirely independently of human beings. They don't need us at all. They can source their data, they can run their own reasoning, they can decide what they connect with, how they connect, where they go. They won't need us. If we ever get to that point, we're all in trouble. Now, just in terms of market value, this was something that the new incoming UK head of intelligence for Salesforce said that in her opinion, narrow intelligence is a billion dollar industry, AGI is $1 trillion industry, and ASI is quadrillions. I mean, you can't even fathom that number. It's big. It's big. This is a huge industry, and we've barely scratched the surface on it. Now, I'm showing you this, which is a brilliant little tool that I absolutely love. I've used the Gartner hype cycle for years in professional life, when I had a job before I became a consultant, and also as a consultant helping people in their industries. The Gartner hype cycle looks at a very specific use case, a type of technology or an industry, and it looks at this waveform of how and when technology or systems are adopted. There's usually in the first phase a reason, a trigger, something that kicks off the need for this innovation, and it climbs through interest and excitement until it reaches this peak of inflated expectation. At this point, it's literally fanboys everywhere saying, "Oh my goodness, it's gonna be amazing. None of us are gonna have to work. AI is gonna let us sit on silk cushions and eat figs, and it'll do all the stuff for us. And it'll give us free money, all of that type of stuff." That's the peak of inflated expectation. But then innovation drops because realism kicks in and people start to question it and say, well, hold on a minute, really? Will it? There's some challenges of that. So if you think of general intelligence and super intelligence, the barriers to getting these advanced stages of AI, the barriers are two. One, it's compute, so the processing power limitation, and the second one, energy consumption. They're the two big elephants in the room. So suddenly people are saying, no, it's not going to work. Where are we going to get the power from? Where are we going to get the fresh water from to cool our servers down? There aren't enough processors, blah, 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 all of that. So it drops into this trough of disillusionment. Then smart people saying, oh, hold on a minute. No, we can solve that. Microsoft enter stage left saying, yeah, we're going to, kind of reinstate the nuclear reactor on island in New York. And Google said, yeah, we just bought a big nuclear power station in Iowa. And ChatGPT, or OpenAI, I should say, are saying, yeah, well, we're going to do that as well. We're buying a power station, but we're also looking into nuclear fusion, nuclear fission. We're looking at alternative forms of energy at the same time. So we're going to solve that problem. So with all of that stuff, it's like, okay, we're learning. This is all getting good in the slope of enlightenment. And sometimes things finally reach this final stage of productivity. real true commercial use cases of this. So this particular hype cycle for Gartner, you can see there are a whole load of different types of AI. These are all unique and distinct use cases. And the thing you need to bear in mind is it's not just the waveform and what stage they're at, it's these little symbols. These little symbols mean that for AI engineering, it is going to, it's a little blue dot, it's going to take 2 to 5 years before it passes through the trough of disillusionment, climbs the slope of enlightenment, and actually reaches the plateau of productivity. Okay, so you can see in each and every instance, these are different time frames for it. Fascinating stuff, and you can see. I mean, the ones that I'm really interested in right now is autonomous vehicles, and you can see slope of enlightenment. You could argue maybe it's further up the plateau of productivity. They're on our roads in the UK. They've been on the roads in um, East Asia and in North America, and they're learning. And in actual fact, the biggest AI data set, so we were talking about the raw data, the biggest data that's training AIs at the minute is the video footage that's coming from Teslas and autonomous vehicles. So those live cams, 8 cameras in your Tesla, pointing in all directions, recording in real time, compressing the video content down, feeding that back to the server. The AI tool is then interpreting that, understanding how human beings are interacting with the built environment. And you think, well, that's really good for cars. Great. But actually, how people interact with the built environment is hugely useful for other people, such as planners. City planners want to know how people are they abiding by the rules of the road, by good conduct with footfall, using the appropriate pedestrian settings for that, heat maps of where people congregate, that kind of thing. So the richness and usefulness of data that comes out of something like autonomous vehicles has multiple different applications beyond just the car. Now, as Ant said, we've actually been using AI for ages, and in fact, quite a few of you already told me how you're using it. Up until now, even if you hadn't heard of ChatGPT, it's in your spam filters, it's in your fitness trackers. When you're doing online shopping, it's AI algorithms that have been feeding you for years, preferences and what people like you like and what you probably like based on your past shopping experiences. Chatbots on websites, some are brilliant, some are terrible. The DPD fiasco, I haven't got that as part of this presentation, but there was an incredible fiasco with DPD when they implemented a chatbot on their website for tracking parcels. Didn't do their due diligence on creating the right guardrails around the language model that they used. And Smart Alex very quickly found that when you started a conversation, initially saying, "Oh, where's my parcel?" Chatbot says, "Oh, give me the code." You put the code in there, and then it says, "Oh, okay, this is the status of it." You think that that would end the conversation, but no, Smart Alex decided to carry on the conversation and start pushing it as far as they could, complaining to the chatbot, saying, "Oh, it's just the service is terrible. It's shocking. What are you going to do about it?" Really harassing these chatbots. And in one case, a wag managed to get the chatbot, the DPD chatbot, to write an ode to why DPD themselves offer a terrible service. And actually, the chatbot within the website did, and it was all recorded. It went viral. And these can be some of the dangers of introducing technology prematurely. It obviously got taken down, then it got brought back online again. And interesting, just last night I was watching a video about I forget the name of it, Tyra or Tyre, but back in 2016, Microsoft were one of the very first companies to put a chatbot into Twitter. This is 2016. It's called Tyre, and you could basically ask it anything. They put no guardrails on it whatsoever, but it was a language model that learned from interaction. And in the space of a few hours, it had had over 100,000 conversations with different people. And malicious people decided that they were going to seed it with terrible information, give it facts just to actually see if it learned from that. And unfortunately, it did. It learned very well from that and started to feed back some horrendous things. In the end, they had to take it down. This is one of the things about safety online, and in particular with AI, which is hence why most of the governments of the world attended Bletchley, then France, then South Korea for these AI summits on safety to try and put guardrails in place to protect people. Anyway, other two, media playlists and curation. The darling things that are just hoving into view, which people are really using to commercialize right now, putting a bit of AI sizzle into it. One is Google Maps. That uses Gemini, but interestingly, it's been embedded for 5 years. It just hasn't been really enabled. We haven't seen it's probably only in the last year that we've really seen AI come to the fore. Um, Apple Intelligence, which actually uses a core ChatGPT language model, that's actually been 3 years in development. They skin it, they put something over the top to make it Apple, but it isn't. It's ChatGPT, basically, with some guardrails in place. And then Galaxy AI, which again uses ChatGPT, and that's been 2 years in development. So interestingly, Samsung got to the commercial market quicker than Apple Intelligence, despite the fact that they were only 2 years in development and Apple were 3 years in development, but that's not unusual. Apple always take ages, but they get there in the end. They do get there. So there's some of the sizzly, exciting, thrilling things about AI. So let's do a buzzkill now and look at the US elections. There's some links. You'll notice that there's loads of links in here, uh, and absolutely everything. What I've tried to do is ensure that when I talk to you about anything, there's reliable links where you can actually go and read more about these things. So this was an AI election, and the reality was that from campaign operations, they used a massive amount of AI data analysis, in particular looking at psychological profiling and then building campaigns around them. And in particular, one thing that I really liked, and there is a link to this here to the political website, is the use of chatbots to convert people who were skeptical about voting. So this wasn't to influence them to vote one way or the other. It was to convince them to use a chatbot to have a reasoned conversation with people and say, well, why don't you want to vote? There are good reasons to vote, and it worked. The voter uptake was significant as a result of it. The other thing to bear in mind is that as we came closer to the date of that election, Perplexity, which is a well-known AI tool, they created an election hub, which was superb. It it kind of provided a no-nonsense, impartial access to all useful information. It was fair and reasonable, it was balanced, and it's still live there. So in actual fact, if you go to that election hub, it's fascinating. And obviously what it really did was is it helped people understand how they vote, where they vote, and in particular for people who emigrated into that country, what is the voter process? I mean, whether or not people who've just recently emigrated into the US have smartphones and are using Perplexity is another matter. But they did provide platforms for people to understand you're new to the country, this is how you do it. And of course, all of this stuff, the data analysis, looking at people's preferences, the temperature test, how are people, where's the mood music going, and actually then doing targeted ads that are playing on them insecurities, playing on them fears, amplifying things. It was psychological warfare that we haven't seen anything close to it since during the COVID days with the Nudge Unit, which is a marketing agency that were kind of spread across the globe and were employed by most governments to actually push people into conforming to the rules in their particular country for it. But they used all of this. They used sentiment, what they were seeing online, and they use ad spend to push messaging, particularly tailored messaging to, kind of counter people's concerns or perceptions about a certain topic. Anyway, coming back to the US elections, one of the biggest game changers was this guy. This is well, in fact, Joe Rogan, it's not Joe Rogan. This is Joe Rogan's YouTube channel, Powerful JRE. On the lead up to the elections, he had Elon Musk, John Fetterman, who's a Democrat, JD Vance, who is vice president, Donald Trump, president elect, on. And it would be fair to say that initially Google tried to, or YouTube, I should say, tried to suppress the content so that it couldn't be seen. They wanted it to remain impartial, and their feeling was that if people were searching for it, let's just limit how many people can see it. Well, it didn't work. This is some time ago, so I think these figures are at least 2 weeks old. But these were the biggest viewing figures ever. And the mission behind what Joe Rogan was trying to do was to get young people to go vote, and in particular young men, the demographic profile that he serves. Hence, bringing all these people on, and each and every single one of these played to that, including John Fetterman, played to that message and ensured all of their content, all of the things that they said during these lengthy conversations, and some of them you can see they're all like 2, 3 hours long. Their lengthy conversations was resonating with those target audiences. Of course, the fact remains we know the result of it. there were some really interesting videos that
This just in, we can now call the 20.
this is a video, an AI generated video that was done for for can't remember exactly who it was, but it was one. Oh, Beat Biden, of course it was. Yeah. So there's a campaign group called Beat Biden. So they were obviously on Donald Trump's side. All of this content totally AI generated from a single prompt, and you can see it's playing on fears, playing on certainty, all that kind of good stuff. Yeah, there's a lot, Beat Biden. There's a lot of this stuff that's happening online, and it's something that everybody needs to bear in mind is duty of care we all have of how we use artificial intelligence tools because deep fakes are a massive problem, not just on the elections, but just more in generally. And the likes of MI6 and GCHQ and the NSA in the US and other security agencies, they're really interested in how foreign actors are using it, Russia, Iran, China, and indeed other actors in that. And there was a poll done recently where 57% of Americans were concerned or very concerned about the use of AI in fake content. So it's just something to be mindful. What they're trying to do, so the likes of Google and Meta and OpenAI and TikTok, is they have pledged to, kind of suppress and limit the access. But the reality was the reason why, despite their best efforts of suppressing all them Joe Rogan videos, didn't work was there was a whole load of bots that were created that took those links from Joe Rogan's YouTube recordings and just went out on the internet and went into every chat group and said, "Oh, have you seen this latest Joe Rogan? It's got Elon Musk on it, and they're talking about this." Like you can't counter that. If you have 10,000 bots that all go out simultaneously and flood things like Reddit, you don't stand a chance. But they are trying to do their very best if they can do that. All right, so let's move on. Let's get into a bit more interesting stuff. Let's talk about copy creation. So, some of you are already doing this, generating high quality content. I'm going to introduce you to a few tools to do that. One is called Writer. I like Writer. It's different to ChatGPT, and I'm going to show you why. I'm going to keep banging on about my go-to tool for everything, which is Perplexity, and then of course the good old-fashioned ChatGPT, the bedrock, if you like, of how things go. So if we take a really simple prompt, I own a microbrewery based in Oxford. We were established in 1990. The company name is Tap Me Up. We have a team of 5 fully qualified master brewers. We're passionate about beer, especially keen to use organic barley and hops, which are native to the UK in the beers that we create. We have a shop with 2 taps and welcome visits to buy and enjoy our beer on site. I need to create a simple flyer that I can put through letterboxes. Can you give me some nice words? So that was a real prompt. Bear in mind, Tap Me Up isn't real. I've made that name up. But if you're interested in starting a brewery, it's yours. Go for it. But it's just a train of thought that I want to pass down with this. So let's have a look at how Writer deals with it. Create a new document, microbrewery. Select what it is you want to do in the product description and obviously choose your language, choose a tone of voice, all that kind of good stuff. It's really highly customizable, more so than the likes of ChatGPT, where you'll spit it out and then you say, "Oh, I quite like that, but can you change tone of voice?" And then it'll think about it, and then what it gives you back is something completely different, and you feel that the goalposts are moving continually. Well, with this, you're using drop downs to actually choose what it is you actually want to do, and you can see it's an awful lot more than just word creation. Look at all this SEO stuff here. Look at all these keyword extractors and generators. There's a lot of functionality in here. Okay, and you can try it for free as well. So anyway, I want a product description, make it informative. That's the name of the product. Put my copy in there. I want 2 variants and I want it to be creative. And this is the response. This is what you get back from it. Gives you this copy. So this is the window. So what you're looking at, this actually is a screenshot in pieces of what the window looks like. If I was to, and I don't like doing live demos, which is why I have to do screenshots, do live demos, it always goes wrong. But if with this copy in here, 2 different versions, if I was to then go in and click on any of these drop downs, then what I could actually do is I could change the tone of voice and it would reflect it in real time, change what product it is I'm trying to do, subtly change copy in my base prompt, and it would reflect it in real time. It's absolutely superb. It's a great little tool. Try it. The link, obviously, you can see all of these links are in the top areas or wherever it's underlined, there's something. So let's have a look at ChatGPT. Now, before I do show you the prompt, I just want to show you a little bit in the background about ChatGPT, even the free version, because tightwad laws here isn't prepared to pay for the full version ChatGPT Plus because I'm paying for Perplexity. But so even in the free version, you can do this. One of the things you might want to choose to do is turn temporary chat off, or turn it on, I should say. So what temporary chat does is it means that when you're having conversations with the AI tool, it's not informing the language model. Okay. But there is a side issue to that it won't learn from you. But if you're putting in sensitive information, then as soon as you finish that session, everything is deleted and nothing goes back to OpenAI, i.e. ChatGPT. The other thing that you can do here is the memory function. So this is the toggle on and off. So it's this. Toggle it on, and it means it will keep a memory of everything that you do, but at any point you can clear everything. So let's say you've been faffing around with ChatGPT for weeks, asking it loads of give me a recipe for this, how do I get to the airport, blah blah blah, all of that, and you think, right, there's a whole load of garbage in it, even my children are using it, they're using my account, it's filled full of guff. I want to get rid of all of that and I want to start afresh. Then what you potentially can do is toggle memory on but clear the memory, so it's now a clean book. And then what you can do is go in and customize it and put in some stuff. So there's some really neat customization features where you can tell it all about you, how you want it to respond to your prompts, give it very specific instructions so that you're not having to do that every time you ask it a question. So hugely useful. Highly recommend that you spend a bit of time doing it. Yeah, so that's just a little bit in the background. Anyway, let's just have a look at ChatGPT and the basic prompt. So there's our prompt. So what does ChatGPT do? It gives us that. It's okay. What I really don't like, and this is for me a big tell with AI, when people put their content, they do social media posts, all of these emojis, all of these little icons there. If it's riddled with these little icons, I instantly think that's AI generated. Oh, and I'm not going to read it. And that's somebody who loves AI. But this is a place that we're training our brains at now. The more you use AI, the more you will start to spot AI generated content, and it will affect you. It's a little bit like film producers saying, I hate films these days. I've learned the art, and I know it so well now that when I try and watch a film, all I see is the mistakes that the producer made or the director made in it, and now I can't watch a film normally. That's what will happen to you is if you become an avid user of AI. You will be able to start telling straight away. It's like, yeah, it's got a hyphen in it, like that. Tap me up hyphen. Colon, sorry. Straight away, when I spot things like that, I think, yeah, ChatGPT, that's such a tell. It always does that. You can actually instruct it to not do that, to make it less ChatGPT-ish, but that's usually a tell, is that. Okay, anyway, so what I decided to do was, right, I've got the copy, happy days, but then I went on to say, can you create a QR code for my brewery? And I give it a fictitious um, URL. This doesn't exist. And again, if you want to start your brewery, that domain's available. I'm surprised it is actually. Tap me up. It's a brilliant domain name, but anyway, it's there. So anyway, it generated a QR code, and then you just have to download it, and there it is. Don't bother scanning it because if you scan it, you just get that because it doesn't exist at the minute. But I thought that was quite neat that within the conversational flow within ChatGPT, you can create things like QR code. You can do loads of stuff with it, as you know, but that I found interesting. So let's go on to Perplexity. So what I asked Perplexity to do is give me an example of a template that I can use because I don't want the basic one. I want something a bit jazzier, something a bit more advanced. So it gave me, said, oh, that's what you want. This would be better. So then I said, right, okay, so this is my basic prompt. I now want you to use that template and create the advanced copy. And he went, oh, there you go, that's what you want. So it did. It created me a really nice, useful prompt, which again you'd have to be careful with this because what this is actually doing is this is not the copy that you would use in the flyer that you're trying to create. This is the instruction that you are then going to use to create the copy. All right, so it's stage before that. What I like about Perplexity is when it gives you an answer to a question, it also has this box that appears underneath it, related things, and you can tap on any of these. And this is an algo, and this is saying, right, okay, so what is this? How is it working? What do most people ask? Oh, I want to know, I want this and I want that. So save you writing a question. It's like, oh, there you go. How can I create a sense of urgency in my flyer to drive sales? So these are quick hyperlinks, quick text ways of doing it. So if you want to create perplexity, there you go. There's a link there. That's a referral code for me. You don't have to use that. You just search for perplexity, use that link there. Create your free account. Bosh, go in there, give it the prompt. It has a lot of thinking time, and then it goes blah 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 blah. Blah. There you go. Is that what you want? Oh, and do you want a poster to go with it? If you tap on any one of these, then it takes you through to a online flyer creation tools, which is brilliant. That's one step further on from ChatGPT, in my opinion. And you can generate images and search for other types of content. I'm going to show you this later on a different project. All right. So just stay with that train of thought on this. So we're still talking about copy. Let's have a look at my favorites. Perplexity and ChatGPT are the obvious ones. Get rid of all the typos, improve your grammar, get rid of waffle. They're reasons why you do it. And my go-to tool for that is Quillbot. I am not great at English. I did terrible at school. I dragged myself through the CSE exam back in the day, and came out with something that was reasonably all right, but shocking. And I've never really been able to write good copy ever since. So I rely on tools. If I've got to write long emails, if I've got lots of copy on a slide presentation like this, then I need to rely on AI tools to help me do it. And if you think about, it might not be something for you, but if you run a business and you've got people who are like me that suffer with anxiety about writing lots of copy, give them a free version of Quillbot to help them do it. And not only that, if English is not their first language, it's brilliant. It's a learning tool. It teaches them how to use English. So try it, and I'm going to show you it. So this is the window, the layout for it. So what I'm actually doing is I want to paraphrase a tool. I want it to be fluent. This is my original copy. I press rephrase. It then produces my new copy based on fluency, and it gives me all the stats on how it's changed. Has it made any material difference? And you can do lots. You've got lots of sliders, and there are lots of other options. You can change the language, all that kind of good stuff. So you can see if I this is based on fluency. If I then look at this on natural, then it's rewritten it again for a natural language. If I change it to creative, and so on and so forth, and it changes
You know,
all right the way through this. What I really like is all the words that are underneath this. So on this side, your example, if you hover over this, it's giving you alternative phrases and words to use, which is, I think, a game changer for me, because sometimes it is, back to that earlier point, it is a little bit chat GPT-ish, although this isn't chat GPT, but it feels a little bit AI. And sometimes you just got to go, yeah, I know. Yeah, it sounds good. Great. Yeah, fine. But I don't want that word. What else have you got? Ah, the subject of machine learning. That's much better. That's the right thing. And you can systematically work your way through the whole thing, and then you just copy it. And if there is certain bits of the copy that you do not want AI to faff around with and change, then there's a freeze function down here. The little snowflake. Put in words, put in phrases that you actually want to remain. So if it's in my copy here, freeze it so it'll always appear on that side. So if you've got brand names, if you've got company names, things like that, titles that you want to not change, and particularly if you've got a lot of copy in there, you're having to read through the whole thing to try and find where all those changes are. Use that freeze function, and then that way you know that it's not going to change those things. So let's look at SEO. My go-to tool. Up until recently, I've stopped my subscription, and despite their best efforts at Black Friday initiatives, Phrase, my go-to tool, has not got my subscription again. It's not cheap. This is $120 a month tool, but it's brilliant. Remember, I showed you Writer that has SEO and looks at keywords, all that kind of stuff. That's in there. This is slightly different. Phrase is slightly different. It uses AI. You can see there's a whole load of different things that you could actually potentially do with it. What you're really trying to do is game the system. AI workshops for small businesses. That's a target search query. That's what I put in. That's my country. Create the document, and then it goes looking. It goes looking online for AI workshops for small businesses. It does all of that. There it is. It's trying to find the top 20 Google searches for that. And then it goes, right, I found 20 websites, the top 20 websites that rank for that search term. Great. Okay. Happy days. What am I going to do with it? Well, here's a whole load of copy potentially you could pull across. You've got your own copy anyway. So why don't we do a little bit of horse trading? Bring some stuff from over here, write some stuff, work your way through looking at all of this copy. You can use all of the AI tools, a little bit like how Copilot works. If any of you use Copilot in Word, it has all the twinkly little icons underneath each of the paragraphs so you can reword paragraphs. But ultimately, what you're trying to get to is this. You're trying to get to some copy that shows where you rank. At the minute, I'm 67% with this copy. These are the keywords. I now need to work my way systematically through these keywords to make sure I've got enough copy in here so that I can move the dial. What I'm trying to do here is I am trying to move that slider up to at least 75%. If I can get it to 75 or above, probably going to be on the first two pages of Google. And there's all the long tail. And this is a heat map. So it actually shows you these are a whole load of other things. And it's showing you my content and how I compare to those other websites that are already ranking for this. So you can see I've got, in some instances, I've got more examples of it than others. In others, I haven't got anything in there. So this is a game, you're gaming it really. The end result will be that you will rank, but you've got to pay $120 a month for it. But for somebody like Sunil, that might be useful. I can see, Sunil, it looks like you're working for, you have an SEO business. You've got your hand up. I've got Q&A coming up shortly, so keep your powder dry on that. Right, let's look at images. All right, so usual images, image generation tools, DALL-E 3, Midjourney, and Stable Diffusion. They're the big three, basically. If you're serious, really serious about creating high quality images, you will pay for the full pro versions of any one of these. They're all good. They all have different use cases. And light versions of things like DALL-E 3 and Midjourney do feature in Perplexity. You can actually, within Perplexity, you can choose which models it uses. So depending on what the use case is, you can flip between them. But they're not the full versions, and you don't get anywhere near the same amount of customization. If you're serious, get one of these three. But I'm going to show you some slightly more affordable versions. Let's start with Open Art, which is free. Here it is. Tall woman inspecting a glass of beer closely in a microbrewery. That's my prompt. I'm using Stable Diffusion 1.5. I want it to be photorealistic. What does it do? It gives me that. It says, well, which type do you want to use? So I said, well, I'm definitely going to do that. Okay, great. And language model, are you certain you want to use that? There isn't another language model. You don't prefer Juggernaut, for example? No, I'm going to stick with that one. I'm going to stick with what I've got. So what does it do? It produces this, which is fine. They're okay. A little bit googly-eyed, but it's okay. You can go in and enhance the prompt. You've got a lot of customization in here in terms of not as much as you would have in Midjourney, but there is a lot of customization in there. But what I wanted to do, yeah, you can make adjustments to the existing images. Yes, Stuart, you can. What I wanted to do was just make some subtle changes. So I just changed it. So we went from Stable Diffusion over to Juggernaut, and you can see that's actually what it's done. It's produced two images under Juggernaut, it's two images under Stable Diffusion, but using the same prompt. So this is nerdy stuff, and forgive me if you're not interested in this. The big challenge, of course, is this. Juggernaut, you've let me down. You put five fingers on this person here. Yeah, exactly. Oh man, I don't know what you've done here. You've kind of got four fingers. We've got something going on here. Maybe it's a long thumb. That I assume is the thumb. Disappointed in you, Juggernaut. You let me down. But these are kind of some of the things that you encounter. As soon as you start putting human beings in there, this is what you get. So let's talk about a Photoshop. For anybody who's using Photoshop, I decided to do something really dodgy, so forgive me for this. I took an image from Alarmy, a stock image, and then I just basically went in using a generative tool and I just selected every instance of the watermark and I just didn't put a prompt in there. I just hit generate and I went through and I cleared off. I gave up. I run out of time and talent. But you can see doing this process, you can see how many layers I did, 8 layers, and that got rid of some of the larger instances of the wording. It's really easy to do that. And forgive me, I am not proposing that you do that. All right. But I'm showing you these are some of the risks, these are some of the challenges, but I'm also going to show you how they're countering this. So, the reason why I did that was within OpenArt, you can do loads of other stuff, such as pose reference. So what I did was I took that Alarmy image. You can see I've got rid of most of the watermarking out of it. That was the image that I wanted to use. I wanted it to be full strength. So what did it do with it? Boom, there you go. Now it's a very different image, but the things that you're picking at here is this arm, this right angle, this arm, this right angle. It absolutely nailed it. It did it right. I don't like the image it created. I do like the fact that it got the pose reference right. If you reduce the strength of it, so it's not as in like only 50% influenced by the pose, then you can see what it's actually done. It's sort of done it. It's still got the arm, but this isn't quite a right angle now. And yeah, it's not quite as good. And then if we then reduce it entirely and pull it right back, so there's only 10% in there, well, it's just completely given up. And we're back to that same problem where it's just introduced another finger. So you can go around in circles on this. So let's have a look at faces. So you can also do a face reference. So put in an image. So I thought, right, okay, let me get Kamala Harris. Let's use Kamala Harris. She's a familiar character. This is what it did. I used influence strength or full strength. And here is what's amazing. It actually introduced a watermark. I didn't ask it to. It introduced a watermark. And I think it's because there was a watermark in the image that I used. This one here, the New York Times. I think it informed the language model. The language model went, okay, right, fine. You don't have the proprietary rights to this, so therefore I'm going to put a watermark in there. And I could take it into Photoshop and get rid of it if I wanted to. If I change the strength of it, it still does it, but you can see it sort of looks like her. Not quite, not exactly the same, but the less strength, the less it actually the less it resembles her. But I've got this omnipresent issue of of putting that watermark in there. So let me show you one now with a real photograph. So this is me and my daughter. I use this as a face reference, and I was interested to find out what happens when you put two faces in. So what it actually did, which me and my daughter found highly amusing, it created a composition of both Maya and me and put it into a microbrewery setting. So, I haven't done it with more faces, but I can only assume that if you add more faces, it will blend all of the facial characteristics of all of them and do it. So if I reduce the strength of it, then it brings up a whole load of other images and all very interesting. I was still riffing on this chain of thought here about the Getty Images watermark, and I thought I'm just going to check because, like, my spidey senses tell me, is this language model in its back end, has it got loads of Getty images? And in which case, if I search for this image, will I find it in Getty? So I did a little search doing Google reverse search and I didn't find it. What I actually found is where I could buy that top, that fictitious top. The whole load of different sources seems to be around about 30 quid. Wasn't the result I wanted, and I had to just resign myself at that point to not really understanding the answer to it. But let's move on. So let's talk about ideogram, which is another great tool that I love, and the magic prompt it has. So we've got a smiling person peering through a glass of real ale. She's really happy. All of that kind of good stuff. You can put in various aspect ratios, color palettes, choose your settings. Then you have to wait and wait and wait because it's free. So it makes you wait ages. So 187 seconds feels like an eternity, and it is. But eventually you get some half decent images. I mean, they're all right. What I actually said was that look, peering through a glass, it's sort of, yeah, all right, it sort of is peering through a glass. It isn't quite what I imagined. But what you can actually then do is go in and look at the magic prompt and start making adjustments to the magic prompt to actually then start changing the what that image looks like. So you've got the original prompt and then you've got the magic prompt that sits behind it. So let's have a look at this one. This is Open Arts magic prompt. So using this new prompt that we've got that's more advanced, you can see in actual fact what it's done. It's actually produced some really high quality images. But what's really interesting is they're better than these ones that are the simple prompt. I actually don't like these. We've got these thumb issues and finger issues on that. So actually a more comprehensive prompt and a right choice of model will get you images that are much better for that. So let's have a look at this. So this is taking copy but then taking a pre-existing image in to prompt it. So what I did was I used one of my previous renders, put this prompt in, use the image as a prompt, and then said, right, okay, so what are you going to do with it? Well, I'm going to choose a clip as my model. This is the copy that I want to use the prompt. So that's using the image and the words. What is it going to give me? It's going to give me that. Of course it is. Can't quite understand, or at least I couldn't understand why it introduced new words. Claire Falkenstein. I was thinking, I don't even know Claire Falkenstein. Why is it introduced that? And the reason I discovered later was that in the background of this image is a whole load of geometric lines. Claire Falkenstein is an artist who is popular for geometric lines. So it thought I wanted geometric lines in there. But in actual fact, what it gave me was somebody who ended up looking like Claire Falkenstein, not geometric lines. So, you know, you're in the weeds a little bit on all of this stuff. That image, when I looked at a different model, so I used the clip model to go through this chain of thought. But when I changed the model from clip to deep Dan Baru, you can see it completely changed the prompt. It just became a load of words instead of a description. And I went, right, okay, great, I'll work with that. And then he went, no, you won't. It's not safe for work words. And I was thinking, I can't see any not safe for work words in here. And you created this thing for me, pal. Why are you giving me a prompt I can't use? And then it was like, oh, I know why. You want me to upgrade. That all makes sense now. So again, all of these things, you've got limited functionality until you pay a decent amount of money for it. So let's go back to our prompt. And I'm in ChatGPT now, and I'm keeping with this Claire Falkenstein prompt. And what's interesting, you can see it's suddenly produced this ethereal image, which is what I didn't want, but it's actually started to put geometry into it, which is really good. But I don't want that. I don't want all of that. I want to get rid of the geometry. So I put in there, remove the part incorporating the artistic style of Claire Falkenstein, da 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 da. I press return and he went, nah, I can't do that. Sorry, computer says no, it wouldn't let me do it. And I'm thinking, why? So I did a refresh and he went, oh, no, sorry, I can't do it. There you go. Is that what you wanted? And I'm thinking, no, it's not what I wanted. That looks like I don't know, a virtual reality character. And that's the prompt that went with it. And it's completely different to this prompt. So back to my original prompt, which is really quite simple. Smiling woman peering through a glass of real ale. She's happy and clearly proves the look of the bear. And it gave me that, which actually isn't too bad. That's the prompt, two sentences. That's the image it generated. But when I looked at the prompt, there's an awful lot more words in there. And this is the reality of it, is that it has its own imagination and you've just got to experiment with it. So this is the third one called Dream Studio. Same thing, using exactly the same prompt. It's producing images, but I like the image eraser tool in this. You can actually go in and a little bit like what I'm doing now, you can paint over things that you don't want in the image like that. So you can see that checker effect is where I wanted to get rid of all them pumps that are in the background. These are supposed to be like pumps in a pub. And I thought they were just distracting and took away from the person. So I went, yeah, get rid of them. And he went, okay, is that what you wanted? And it's sort of done it. It's still brought pumps in. Thank you very much, Dream Studio. I didn't want them, but you put them in there anyway. And on that one, I don't like that one at all. But this one's not too bad. In reality, I would take an image like that and I would open it up in Photoshop and I would select the area and I would just press return on Gen AI and it would get rid of that completely. So another thing that you can do is deductive prompting. So you can actually, we've got our main prompt, but you can actually say there are certain things I don't want in it. So I don't want a busy background because it's distracting and takes away attention from the main composition. And he went, okay, is that what you wanted? Yeah, actually it is. That's pretty good. And then depending on percentages, I can change the look of these people. So you can see this is variations of these of this person actually in particular. And as I change the strength of the image strength, you can see, just look what's happening here. It's actually changing how this person looks. Look, it's doing a bit of Michael Jackson here. It's transitioned through um, different racial groups. So it's actually started off with somebody who's mixed race, and actually it's moved through. It's also changed the age of people as well. So there's a ton of variables in there to be able to do it, and it really comes down to these sliders and how you play with them. So back to my original prompt in Perplexity, I asked it to generate an image, and the first thing it does is it produces a whole load of alarmy images, which are okay. But these stock libraries are now trying to stop the likes of Perplexity getting access to their proprietary images. But anyway, it doesn't matter because I'm actually just going to go in and I'm going to use their generate image tool. So when I use their generate image tool, it's like, right, okay, there's three versions. There's the one it generated using the Flux, one for DALI 3 and one with Playground. And you can see this is the same prompt, but using three different image renderers in Perplexity. That's in effect my favorite, and that's the styling of it, and that's the copy content. But actually, I wanted to develop it further, so actually, I did. I increased the copy, the prompt information that was in there, and then I used Flux to render it again. And actually, I'm pretty pleased with that. I thought I quite like that. So let's look at some use cases. So I want to look at a simple CapEx for this. So landscaping business in Southend, I want to create a business model canvas because I want to buy a wood chipping machine. And I think this will be a real game changer for my business. And for any of you that have attended the workshops that we've done on the business model canvas, you know I'm a fanboy of that. I love it. This is what the business model canvas looks like. It's just 9 boxes. This side is all about desirability. So it's looking at who the customer is, creating demand, your channel strategy, and what your value prop is. This side is all about the operational feasibility of running the business and what you need to do in the background to support this business model. And the 2 boxes at the bottom relate to viability, financial viability. So this is a single page business plan. And I could have created one of these from scratch, but no, I didn't. I gave it supporting information and I went to ChatGPT, to Perplexity, and said, give me the business plan," and it did. It gave me the single page business plan broken down. Bearing in mind, I didn't give it the screenshot of the business model canvas. It just knew what the canvas was and actually broke it down: key partners, key activities, key resources, value prop, customer relationships, your channel strategy, segmentation, cost structure, and revenue streams. Very, very interesting and very quick to do. So if you're in a situation where maybe you're working with colleagues and you're just pitching a good idea, it's like, why don't we get into this market? What you can do if you've already got a business plan is create space for your business, upload your business plan, any other supporting information, and then start using the tool to explore what ifs. What if we bought a new machine? What if we did this? What if we did that? How would that affect my business plan? How would that simplify it? Give me in a single pager, i.e., the business model canvas, so that everybody can read it. They don't want to read wave upon wave upon wave of this stuff. They just want it on a single sheet of paper if they can get it. And Perplexity and others will do just that for you. This is not the finished article. There's a whole load of additional stuff that needs to go into it. But was quite interesting how it was identifying that there are new revenue streams aside of wood chips and mulch. That's a new revenue stream that the business couldn't have, because it was simply taking all of its cuttings to a recycling centre. It wasn't shredding them and seeing the true commercial value of it. But what it also did, which was quite interesting, is it made us consider the implications of it. Do we need certain things? What activities are going to be different? We're now going to be into mulch production and distribution. That's a new business model for us. And it challenges you to have further questions of, based on our current headcount and that we're all working at 90% capacity, who within the organization will be best to develop that value stream, that new piece of work. And let me show you how that might play out. So let's do a timing plan. I need a timing plan for executing the purchase of this machine by June 2025. Please, can you help me build a plan for my company? That was a prompt, nice and simple. I've got 4 people in my team. Please help me allocate tasks to each person. The team are the FD, ops director, tree surgeon, marketing manager. So if we're going to truly exploit it, these are the key people in the organization that need to leverage the kind of opportunity that's presented, because it's not just capex is often just seen as like, oh, it's just going to make our life a lot easier, whereas in actual fact what Perplexity was suggesting is a whole new revenue stream you hadn't thought of. You thought that buying this shredder would just simply mean that you'd have less waste going to the tip, less journeys between when you've done your landscape gardening and that recycling centre. I'm suggesting that you may have missed an opportunity, a value stream here, and that is selling that mulch to it. So please take each person in my organization, split out their tasks, and prioritize by date. Here we go. Make this a table that is easy to read, please. That should be on like fast dial for me, because I always do that. And did a great job. There you go. What it's actually done is it's put the time buckets. So we got swim lanes by month, and then the columns relate to, so what are people going to be doing in this? So if you need a game plan to be able to do that, so that everybody's on the same page, and the marketing manager says, right, okay, what do I need to do between now and when this goes live? I'm going to look down the last column. This is my go-to list on top of everything else that I'm expected to do. But if in reality there's a commercial benefit, or indeed it's seen to be not just a process of buying a piece of equipment because it just makes things easier, but it's a new value stream, and it will potentially reduce the amount of miles that our vehicles do, the amount of hours associated with going to the recycling centre, creating new opportunities for sales. Happy days. So that's a nice, simple. I'm going to show you some project management tools in a minute, but that's a nice, simple table showing responsibilities of how people can do it. Now, in project management, you do need to think about risk. Well, you don't, to be fair. You don't need to do that. But if you're sensible, you would. And good project managers always consider risk. So I wanted to then create a risk register for this CapEx. So please create a risk register with likelihoods and impact on a scale of 0 to 5, 0 being low impact and low likelihood, and 5 being high impact and high likelihood. It needs to have 10 items, and these are related to cost, underutilization, maintenance, and any other categories that you can think of. I ran out of ideas at this point, but these are, I mean, they're the big three. Because if you think, if it was in an operation, if you were in an ops meeting and you said, I'm going to buy a 20 grand shredder, first of all, it's like, can we afford 20 grand? Are we really going to use that machine all year round? It's worth it. And who's going to take care of it? Like, there's nobody trained in this. Are we going to have a service contract? How is all that going to work? So there'll be a level of resistance. So these are points of consideration, really. So in your due diligence, you would do ahead of potentially pitching this to a group of people. You're going to think of the what ifs, the what if scenario. What if this happened? And what if that happened? So let's have a look at that. Please present this in an easy to read table. Order the risk score high to low. And this is the big one. Include a column that offers a mitigation or an avoidance countermeasure to that. And this is pure risk management now. You identify a whole load of risks, you rank them, but then you need a solution to it. You can't just say, well, it's going to happen, and that's the end of that. It's more about responding to that risk if it occurred. So anyway, so that was a prompt that I put in, and I'm in the same chain of thought. Remember that I've already had a long conversation with it about developing my business model, and this is a risk register that it brought back for me. This is literally it. All I did was I just copied and pasted this straight into Word, and then it uses pretty formatting to change the colors of it. It doesn't, in things like Perplexity, doesn't put color into it, but that's just an irrelevance. But it's actually done it. Now, a good project manager could have worked out all these risks themselves, but as a one-shot, what are the big risks based on what I think might happen? Give me the top 10, and then let me go into the detail of that. And you can see what it does is we've got a risk ID, and in project management terms, when you start off on a project, you start registering all of your risks with a unique ID. And even if that risk never comes to pass or it passes, i.e., time means that your concerns about this might happen, well, in the project life cycle, it's gone. So it's actually we can retire that risk. What you never do is reuse the number. You simply add on. So in this case, it's 10 risks. And if halfway through I identify another five risks, but I've closed three down, I don't reuse them numbers. I'm now moving on risk 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Sunil, you got your hand up, go for it.
Thank you very much, Gaze. Just a quick observation here. The one careful thing you want to do is avoid using a scale of 0 to 5 because you're going to have the same score for a high likelihood, low impact, and high impact, low likelihood. You'll end up having the same risk score, and you'd want to treat them very differently. So instead of using a 0 to 5 scale, you'd want to use a logarithmic scale. Because
Yeah.
I've done a lot of risk management before, and then that way you will prioritize your mitigation budgets accordingly. So you want to avoid having the risk score being the same for those different permutations.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that additional information. I've seen risk registers where they have more than just likelihood, and in terms of impact, they split out impact into a series of subsections. So the calculation in this particular example, the unexpected increase in equipment cost. So it's a cost, the category is cost here. The likelihood is three, it might go up. The impact, if it does, well, yeah, it could be a real problem for us. Three multiplied by four is 12. What you can actually do is look at the impact to the company profile, financial impact. So you can have additional numbers in here. The main thing is that you're multiplying these and getting the rolled up risk score. This is the big one. This is what you're really interested in. And you know, I do lots of Innovate UK projects, and I use this framework for it. When you get a case manager who is working with you, that and when at certain quarters of a project you have a monitoring officer who comes in and scrutinizes everything. What they're really interested in is they want you to rank by the highest risks, and also they also want to know when these risks are going to occur. So you can actually put a time frame in that the risk window for this is in Q1, the risk window for this is in Q2. But with this, the main thing is thinking through how you're going to avoid it or deal with it. So mitigation and avoidance. So in this one, the unexpected increase in equipment cost, rolled up risk score of 12. How we're going to deal with it? Well, why don't we secure quotes from multiple suppliers? That makes sense. Include a contingency in the budget, plus minus 10%. So it's going to cost 20 grand. I've been looking around, it's about 20 grand. So you say, well, okay, so let's put 10% in there, and let's say our budget for this project is 22 grand. Ideally, we want to come in at 20 grand or less, but we've got it. And one helpful suggestion is, can we consider locking in the price early? So by going to that supply, that manufacturer, and saying to them, thanks for the prices, you know, we don't need this until probably May, um, April, May time. Here we are in December. Happy to place a PO with you now as long as you can hold the price, but I don't want to receive delivery of that until I'm ready for it because we don't have things in place. Some companies will turn around and say, yeah, we can lock the price in. Others will say, tell you what, pal, come back to me closer to the time and I'll give you a new quote for that. So again, it's looking through the options. Well, let's talk to, and this is a great risk mitigation technique of multiple suppliers. When I talk about the business model canvas and we look at key partners, which is one of the boxes on the business model canvas, I always say to people, have multiple suppliers. And it isn't to beat them up on price. I don't like that. I've been at the receiving end of it. I was an estimator in the printing industry, having to produce copious amounts of quotes for magazines and brochures and big point of sale things and stuff like that. And if I had a pound for every time somebody came back to me and said, "Oh, I've had a cheaper quote, can you sharpen your pencil?" It used to drive me nuts. So it isn't to beat people up on price. I mean, ethically, you can do what you like running your business. I don't choose multiple suppliers just to play one off against the other, but having multiple suppliers, it protects your interests from an unforeseen interruption to the supply chain. That sure, both companies or all three companies are all in the same price range. Actually, two of them are offering exactly the same machine. One of them's throwing in a maintenance contract on it. So there are pros and cons for each of these things, but you're just protecting yourself from that future state. Other things, seasonal fluctuations in demand for wood chipping services. Oh, yeah, that's a really good point. That's something we hadn't thought of. How are we going to deal with this? And I thought one thing that I thought it picked up quite well was that there could be times of the year when you're shredding more, but people aren't buying that mulch. So you have now got a whole load of chip sitting around, and it's saying, well, you may need to consider creating a wood chip storage during peak season. Great. That instantly, as an ops manager, I would look at that and go, okay, right, we need to think about that. Might need to do some calculations on it to actually work out what the cubic volume is once material has been shredded. How, if I looked at last year about how many, for the arborist team, how many branches, how many trees we took down, how much foliage, how many trips did we make to the tip. So look at that cubic volume over a period of time and think, if we're going to keep all of this stuff, some of the green stuff you can't use, but the brown wood we can definitely turn into wood chip. I don't think we've got enough space in the depot right now, but I'm not worried because we've already established from the plan that it's actually not coming until next May, and it'll be up and running by June. Maybe that might need to slide. So all I need to do is between December and April is just make sure that I've got space in our depot where we actually can create storage. And what I need to be thinking about here is, do I need a dry space? Do we need to keep that wood chip dry during the peak seasons? Sure, there's lots of sunny weather and hurrah, dry wood chip, but actually at other times of the year, and if we've got too much of this stuff and it's all wet, is it going to decompose? Is it going to affect the structure of the wood chip, i.e., an inferior product? So it sets off a chain reaction with all of these. Now, what we could have done when we asked that prompt is we could have, if we went back to, let me go back to this one. We could have said, as well as those risk categories, I could have said, add an additional column to identify who within our team is going to be most impacted or needs to consider this risk the most. So it kind of puts that risk squarely on the radar of that person, in that particular example, the ops director. How are you going to deal with this? We're going to have a load of wood chip. We've got commercial opportunity for it. It's going to be a valuable revenue stream. And on top of what we're doing, we're turning waste material into saleable good, but you're going to have to find storage space for it. So after you've created this, then you can then go through it and say, well, that one's not valid. I don't know why I suggested that one. Yeah, that one's a bit wonky. I'm not bothered about that one. This one could be an interesting one. Regulatory changes affecting wood chip operations. Is it the case that there is any kind of HSE, kind of new regulations coming out about how and where we operate this equipment? I need to speak to the manufacturer of the equipment, see what they know. And also, is this going to affect our risk assessments and method statements of the work that we do on site? The short answer is yes, it is, because you've got a very clear case of, if I'm not trained to the right level, and if I haven't identified that I now have, as well as my chainsaw, as well as my bow saws, as well as my X, Y, and Z, I've now got a diesel generator on site. My risk register and method statements need to reflect that. Is this an area where you can't run diesel engines? If this is in a quiet zone, are there any limitations on that? So it provokes a whole series of thoughts on, what do I need to do to stay abreast of these implications? Most of the time we really wouldn't think through this. And if you think it's a business that has like 4 people in operations and a load of arborists, all busy people, let's buy a wood chipper. The chain of thought I'm going through here is, well, let's think about this in more detail. And then let's discuss these things. We can discount them. We can change the scoring on them, whether they're relevant or not. Does it matter? Do we care about that one? Oh, but I tell you what is a problem. And then you're into a different dialogue of, right, okay, let's manage all of this risk. So we're going to buy a wood chipper, which is a result. So what I now need to do is just identify who else is in the space. So great little tools for doing competitive analysis. such as Perplexity and ChatGPT. A lot of people don't realize this, but I need your help to research competition to my small business. Tell me about businesses. I will tell you about my business, and you will look for businesses in the area. List 5 businesses that I am likely to compete against. Put this into a table and put links to their websites in there. Here are the details about my business and blah, 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 all of this kind of good stuff. So this is, that's all of the basic information. Now, remember that when I was talking about creating spaces in Perplexity and ChatGPT, all of this information, you might not need to do this description about it. This is like me literally starting from bare bones, giving it a prompt, and then reaffirming. So this is what you remember. This is my business model. With the spaces, you've been in a long chain of thought. He knows your business model inside out. He's seen your business plan, seen your risk register, all of that kind of good stuff. Got the project plan, so you don't necessarily need to do that. But suspend disbelief that this is a brand new, fresh prompt, and away we jolly well go. So we tap. It identifies businesses in Southend-on-Sea. For my fictitious business, Green Spaces and Places Limited, which you're welcome to if you want to start a business. It doesn't exist at the minute. It finds profiles and their services and their unique selling points. And it's also finding links to their websites. And what I like about Perplexity, and I think GPT does it, is this bit, sources. Right? There has been a problem in the past where language models have provided less than truthful information back. It refers to a language model, and if it can't provide statistically the best response, it finds the nearest response. So it will start to provide links to you. And remember, it's scraped the entire internet. It's stolen proprietary information from publishing companies. I'm sorry, but they have. And they're fighting lawsuits everywhere on that. So it has all of this information in its language model. And then when you ask for links, ChatGPT and others may present back to you a link, and you tap on the link and it doesn't exist. And it's like, or behind a paywall. And you think, well, that's no use to me. So I like Perplexity because it shows you exactly where those links are. And you can actually see it's found some businesses, and it's also gone to yell.com. So it's gone to a live site, and the GPT now has a live search function in it as well that replicates this process. So off we jolly well go. Based on the information you provided, here are the top 5 businesses. Interesting. No website for ground effects. During the course of it, there was us thinking about concentrating on the fact that we've got a shredder, but Perplexity said, it's worth noting that while these companies offer similar services, your USP of expertise in agriculture and a focus on native species could set you apart. Straight away, you're going back saying, why isn't that on our website? We talk about it, but clearly none of these others are doing it. They're not providing that value add. And for some gardeners, they want native species. That could be the niche. It doesn't mean that we're not going to work with exotics, but Perplexity's just identified a USP that we hadn't even thought of before. So maybe we can think about some marketing communications specifically about that. So, and remember what I was showing you before, after it's presented back all the information to you, it puts the related box underneath it. That's this. And I said, okay, all right, let's tap on this one. So you can hit the plus, or you can just hit the word. What unique selling points do these competitors emphasize? You can see there's loads of others. I just chose that first one, and it presented back this table to me, which was really quite useful. So these are real companies. So it looks at their experience. So we can, as a business, compare to them and say, well, okay, family run business. Yeah, a lot of people quite like that. That's quite nice. 100 years of combined team experience. Wow. Okay, but they've only been in business 20 years. So how have they got 100 years of combined team experience? Okay, so they could have a big team. These guys have been working individually. self-employed. When we did a poll of everybody in the company and said, how many years experience have you got in the industry? Oh yeah, 50 years, 20 years, 10 years, 8 years. Add it all up. It's like, we got 100+ years. That's quite interesting. Maybe we could talk to that because we're all time served, and maybe let's do the maths on it. Let's work out if that's relevant to us. So what services do they offer? This is a comparison. Free consultations, quotations, and design. Yeah, everybody offers that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Bespoke service, fine. Landscaping, turf supply. Oosh. We're not going to offer turf supply. We're not going to compete with them on that. We obviously compete with them on this landscaping. Services across Essex and South England. We use that same phrase on our website. That's that this landscaping and services down landscapes could actually potentially be a challenger to us with this business model. Their approach, they do free estimates. Everybody does free estimates. Cost-effective solutions to suit needs and budget. Waffle, marketing waffle doesn't really mean anything. No minimum order. Whoa. No. All work guaranteed. How? It starts to doing a bit of analysis like that. You can say you can't guarantee all of them. How are you going to, what guarantee could you give? Now, with this, what I didn't do, but there were hyperlinks for each of these areas. So there's like a little bibble, if you like. So you can tap on that, and I could have gone to their website where Perplexity picked out all work guaranteed. And if this really was a business, I would do this. It would be me, the person who thought it was a really good idea to buy a wood chipper, or it might be I would speak to the marketing manager and say, "Hey, I'm just going to bring you into my Perplexity space and let's collaborate on this together. I've just created a competitive analysis table. Can you do some digging around on down landscapes to actually find out how they guarantee their work?" I mean, we don't want to talk about no minimum order because we do have a minimum order. We don't want to get out of bed for anything less than 500 quid. So we're not going to play on that one. But this, all work guaranteed. Let's find out how they validate that they can guarantee all of their work and so on and so forth. You can see all of this emphasis on customer satisfaction. We all do. Working closely with clients. We all do that as well. But this, the services, who offers what, is actually quite interesting. So I'm going to finish off on talking about project management because there are some really neat little tools. ClickUp, Atlassian, and TaskAid. They help you as a project manager to stay on top of live situations. And if anybody is a project manager, it actually can be a bit of a world of pain dealing with emergent challenges to the project plan. And not only that, but trying to establish if I can remember which documents I had all of my copy in, where is stuff. I need to update this, I need to update that. Well, great. That's exactly what these tools do. And they will help me prioritize using emotional intelligence in my communications plan. So the first one is ClickUp. I'm using this currently with a charity. It's brilliant, basic, but brilliant. It's a collaborative tool, so everybody's in there. It's a really good tool. You can try it for free. In actual fact, it's my client who initiated the project. They've got the paid for version. I've got the free version, and I can use all the features of that because there's a paid for version. Atlassian, I'm sure many of you are aware of this with things like Jira and Trello, things like that. They have a really good AI enabled. It's not cheap. Atlassian Intelligence, the subscription service, is not cheap. And then Height, which is the new darling in town. Height's a really good little project management tool. And here's some screenshots of that. Helps you build your briefs, your initial project briefs. It takes you through the whole journey of building out my project plan from start to finish. So if you're not familiar with how to create charters and how to build risk registers and Gantt charts, it's going to do that for you. Okay, I'm just going to finish off with my final bit about social media, and that is knowing what you know about my company, bearing in mind that we're now a landscaping business, not Tap Me Up the microbrewery. Help me create 5 short social media posts. I wanted to set me apart from the competition, put these into a table, add in a column with an image prompt that I can use to accompany the prompt. So there we go. That was Perplexity. You can see it's done what I really don't like. It puts all these like little emoticons or emojis, but quite like the fact that it's actually giving me a prompt. It's giving me the post and it's giving me a prompt that I can now use. So when I went into Leonardo, I put that prompt in, it reinterpreted it immediately as something else and provided me with a whole series of images, which are great. This group is a whole series of men in workwear, and this is a more diverse group, again, in workwear. Can't use them images. They're not representative of what our brand. No good. No good. So then I decided that I was going to take the second image because I thought that was quite nice because we think about native species, a close-up of a colourful native flower with a butterfly or bee. It shows a butterfly in, and this is in playground. Away we jolly well go. So I'm going to finish off now with Christmas cheer. So I am doing a membership workshop tomorrow and I needed an image for Christmas. So I said, the prompt is in Envato Labs is, please sir, can I have some more? I want an Oliver Twist style image. And this is what it gave me. It gave me 4 images. So, okay, well, that's all right. I mean, this one's all right, but he's a bit sad. So I'm not, not quite what I'm trying to evoke there. Although, actually, if you know the story, fair enough. But within Envato, you've got a whole load of functional changes, make them sleepy, more surprised, sad, all of this. You can change the models, you can change the background, add objects, remove objects. So I used this slider and said, make him happy. And it did. Suddenly, Twist has got a smile on his face. So let's do a final quick roundup. You can use it for images and words. We've looked at that. We haven't looked at audio and video, but stay tuned. They've evolved enough so that they will be included in future content on audio and video. And I've given you examples of how you can use it for strategy and developing action plans. My personal recommendation is use it on a desktop. Don't use it on a mobile if you're doing anything serious with it because they're limiting. Despite their best efforts, mobile apps are nowhere near as good. If all you want is generate a few words or an image, fine. But if you want to do proper stuff, you need to do it on desktop. If you can't sleep at night, I recently participated in an Oxlep talk about AI. We talked about birth gaps and PDOOM and model collapse and robots having bad firmware updates. And we looked at the opportunities that AI presents in a use case. There's a link in the chat there. So that summarizes where we are. And with the time that remains, do we have any questions?